Oil sands are naturally occurring mixtures of sand, clay, water, and bitumen. They're a heavy oil that must be treated before it can be used to produce useful fuels such as gasoline and diesel. Oil sands can be found in several locations around the world, such as Venezuela, the United States, and Russia, but the biggest deposits are located in Alberta. It is the most developed and the most technologically advanced production process.
Here is an example of what an oil rig looks like in our eyes. This image was drawn by Kaylee. This graph was made by Tash, and it is representing the percentage of the amount of water used in different fields such as oil sands, oil and gas, etc.
Alberta supplies the U.S. with 1.4 million barrels of oil a day.
Another pro that the oil sands create for Alberta is allowing us to have energy.
Also, by collecting the oil, money is made for our country.
Economic relief is given to Alberta because of the oil sands.
Finally, oil sands provide many people with jobs. Here are some opinions on the oil sands from the MPs in the schools riding.
Well, you know what, the Alberta oil sands is a Canadian success story. It's underpinning the Canadian economy, clearly the Alberta economy. We have encouraged the province and the oil sands companies to be as environmentally responsible as possible. They're doing a tremendous job of that. Suncor spent hundreds of millions of dollars of their own money changing the tailing ponds technology, so the tailing ponds now turn into basically lumps of clay in about 3 weeks. And that's just one example. Every square inch of the oil sands is going to be remediated back to boreal forest. All of the new development is taking place in situ, underground, not surface mining. There's a whole lot of mistruths, misrepresentation out there. We need to get the story out because it is a tremendous success story, and Albertans should be very, very proud of it. Canadians should be proud of it.
What is good for Alberta is good for Canada. I understand that very fully, as does Mr. Ignatieff. The incentives at this point have been used to spur development in the oil sands. But the oil sands is a thriving and mature industry. What we need to do now are to move those incentives into research and development that makes the industry more sustainable, so that we don't get the economic black eyes or the environmental black eyes from Greenpeace or the United States or the European community. We need to make our oil sands industry sustainable so that it continues to be the economic driver for Alberta and for Canada.
We have to look at the oil sands as a major part of our economy right now in Alberta and across Canada. But we also have to be responsible stewards of the resource as well. We want to make sure that the resource is there for future generations. We want to make sure that the projects are safe and that they're addressing environmental issues. And it just goes back to the whole issue of being responsible stewards of our natural resources, because we have our grandchildren to answer to, and that's what the NDB stands for.
The oil sands should have been fully planned and fully evaluated in the first place. It's quite obvious to me that now that they're trying to build pipelines to Kitimat, they're trying to build another pipeline down to Texas. Both of them are being violently, well, not violently yet, but the one to Kitimat maybe with the native people. They produce these settling ponds, tailing ponds, which don't do the job they were thought to. The tailing ponds were expected to settle the sediments over time, and it looks like it's going to be 10, 20, 30 years before that happens. Meanwhile, we have to kill several thousand ducks in the process because the planning wasn't done. So it seems to me that we need a moratorium on oil sands development until we get these problems sorted out.
Oil sands are carbon intensive.
The Athabasca Delta, where the oil sands are located, is a breeding ground for hundreds of species of birds, but these breeding grounds were destroyed to clear the land for oil production.
Some environmentalists worry that clean burning fuel from the Mackenzie Gas Project, a natural gas pipeline system set to be built along the Mackenzie Valley of the Northwest Territories, will be diverted to oil sands refining operations. The construction of the pipeline itself destroys forests, but such a move could also further development of the tar sands. These factors could combine to actually increase Canadian greenhouse gas emissions.
Reserves are limited, and total global reserves sit at around 1.3 trillion barrels, equivalent to about 40 years of reserves at current consumption rates.
Some critics believe that our dependence on the oil sands, which account for 47% of the total amount of oil produced in Canada, is simply relying on the oil sands more than we should.
Nuclear energy facilities generate carbon-free electricity in 30 countries around the world. Nuclear energy production is similar to the ways fossil-fueled power plants generate electricity. A nuclear energy facility provides clean, safe electricity 24 hours a day. Let's go inside the plant to find out how. In most generating plants, whether coal, nuclear, or natural gas, some form of energy is used to heat water into steam. This steam turns a turbine that is coupled to an electromagnet called a generator. The generator produces electricity. While the model is the same, there is a key difference between nuclear energy facilities and other electricity generating plants. Power plants that run on fossil fuels burn coal, oil, or natural gas to generate the heat that creates steam. In a nuclear energy facility, a chain reaction of splitting atoms releases heat. This reaction takes place in the reactor. All reactors are designed, built, and operated with safety as a top priority. Nuclear energy facilities are among the safest facilities in the world because they feature multiple redundant layers of safety systems and procedures, beginning in the core of the reactor. In a nuclear reactor, metal rods with enriched uranium pellets inside are placed into bundles, creating a fuel assembly. The bundles are submerged in water inside a pressurized vessel. The two most common types of nuclear reactors are boiling water reactors and pressurized water reactors. In a boiling water reactor, the heat from split atoms causes the water to boil, producing steam that drives a turbine. Afterwards, the steam is converted back to liquid water and returned to the reactor core. Pressurized water reactors, or PWRs, were developed after boiling water reactors and work in a slightly different manner. In a PWR, the water in the reactor tank is under pressure to keep it from boiling, even though it reaches very high temperatures. In the steam generator of a PWR, water passes through thousands of small pipes. The heat in the pipes turns the water to steam, which then drives the turbine. The turbine powers the generator, which in turn produces electricity. Here is where the process differs from a boiling water reactor. The reactor water is now pumped back into the reactor tank and heated again. The steam from the turbine is cooled in a condenser, and the resulting water is sent back into the steam generator and heated again. To prevent overheating, control rods made of a material that absorbs small atomic particles are inserted into the nuclear fuel bundle. When an operator wants to produce more heat, the control rods are raised out of the bundle. To create less heat, they are lowered into the bundle. The rods can also be lowered completely to shut the reactor down in the case of an accident or to refuel the facility. With this level of control, the operator of a nuclear energy facility is able to ensure that it continues to generate clean, safe, and secure energy. Additional safety systems are in place that shut the reactor down quickly and stop the fission process, cool the reactor down and carry heat away from it, and create barriers to contain any radioactivity and prevent it from escaping into the environment. Nuclear energy facilities are the most efficient source of electricity in the world. By developing a nuclear energy program, the UAE is leading the way for other nations that may look to generate clean, safe electricity in the future. Nuclear energy for the UAE. Part of a bright future for our people.